Giving this a fair treatment will probably take about 8 hours. Okay, and so we're gonna skim the surface on a lot of things, and we're gonna dive a little bit into a few things that probably make the most sense. It's gonna be a little bit difficult because it's gonna confirm some things you already suspect, and it's gonna make you sad in some ways, and it might even make you angry in some ways as well. We'll talk about how we got here, what's going on, and then we'll do some things, suggestions for what we can do about it. Okay, so we're going to talk about the risks being everywhere. We'll touch on these things here: brain, developmental, physical, mental health, spiritual, relational, and then lifelong risk factors, because there are some lifelong implications. The reasons that we've added screens when we look at our complex developmental trauma checklist is because over time, the way that a child's brain is changed, depending on when they get that phone, how they access it, what kind of apps they use, the interactions they have with people on it, it actually does change the brain formation. And over time, we see that the differences in their brains from what would be neurotypical is consistent with kids who've experienced traumatic events. In 2006, Steve Jobs announces the introduction of the iPhone. It went on sale in 2007. By 2010, it had 3G speeds, and it could have internet in the palm of your hand as fast as you could get it at home. That is likely the most significant event of the 21st century so far, because it has fundamentally changed how we do life on the entire planet. Men are physically aggressive. I think we all will accept that. Women are relationally aggressive. And so that becomes really important when your 16-year-old daughter has her iPhone, because that relational aggression makes sure that she's excluded, or maybe she's excluding people. So your brain has two functions. The primary function of your brain is to survive, which is why if I'm in a restaurant and we're sitting talking and I pick my fork up and flick it at your face, you'll do this, because instinctively you're wired to protect yourself. That's the natural state of the brain. Number two is to thrive, to learn and to grow. Now, you will create an internal bias in your brain for thriving or surviving based on your environment and your experiences. Now, here's the problem with that, because thriving is discover mode and you look for opportunities. Surviving is defend mode and you look for dangers primarily. So you will view the world as a dangerous place rather as a place filled with opportunity. Here's the thing though, if an anxious person is always in defend mode. The world's a dangerous place. Any of you raising kids with anxiety? Right, nobody likes them, they have no friends, because they only see the world as a negative place for them. Now there is an exponential increase in anxiety amongst young people using smartphones. And so now we have a whole generation of people who only view the world as a dangerous place that's out to get them. So just to look at these numbers here, and I'll explain something, because all of these graphs will have the same. Do you guys see here between 2010 and 2015, it's grayed out? Okay, so what that means is when the smartphone was introduced in 2007, this is the first generation of group of people who went through puberty with a smartphone. So you have puberty is about 4 years. Well, girls on average enter puberty a year ahead of boys. Boys on average are pubescent a year later, and so that's why it spans the 5 years. But that is always going to be the generation of people who were the first generation of people who went through puberty with smartphones. And notice that it always increases steeply. Every graph we're going to look at is going to increase steeply for those people, because these are the first group of people whose brains were altered by their phones. Reduce face-to-face interactions, limit empathy development. Empathy, loosely defined, is your ability to understand that your words and actions impact other people and that you're not the only person on the planet. But here's the thing. How many of you think drivers are getting worse? I do. Because when you're out there, everybody drives like they're the only car on the road now. And why do they drive like they're the only car on the road now? Because this thing has taught you that you're the most important person on God's green earth. That has made us all obsessed with ourselves. And then the fear of missing out. It creates group identity, but we get lost as individuals because we just go along to get along. I remember when she'll be 17 in June, when she was in middle school, and all of a sudden, all the girls in middle school showed up with plain white shoes. Do you guys remember that? Do what? Air Force One. Yeah. White Nikes with the white Nike logo down the side. Everybody had to have them. And then if you don't have them, then they're mean to you in middle school. And so now your entire identity is based on whether you dropped whatever, $150 on a pair of shoes. But the problem for our kids, and here's the real thing, if they have any identity issues, if they're not secure in who they are as your child, as a child of God, then falling for that's really, really easy. Their self-worth has to come from outside of what people think about them. Do you know there's a study, and I've always find this interesting, that people who spend more of their day thinking about themselves are on average unhappier than people who spend less time thinking about themselves. I find that to be fascinating. Whether you have positive or negative thoughts about yourself is irrelevant. The more time you consume thinking about yourself, the unhappier your life is. That's maybe why James writes that God opposes the proud, but he gives grace to the humble. I don't know if any of you ever read C.S. Lewis's definition of pride. He said, humility isn't thinking less of yourself. It's thinking of yourself less. Major depression amongst teens. Again, let's remember that this window here is the first group of young people who went through puberty. Mental illness amongst college students. Anxiety, depression, all on an enormous rise. Anxiety prevalence by age, 18 to 25-year-olds. Emergency rooms for self-harm. It was declining until the smartphone hit the world. Self-harm, emergency room visits amongst girls was declining before smartphones. Excellent to very good mental health for Canadian women. The steep incline starts during the gray, but even just before it, when the smartphone has already been introduced, it's already trending up. Because all of the time on social media, all of the comparison, all of the being obsessed with yourself has only led to one thing: anxiety, depression, low life satisfaction. If this graph looks like this, you know this one has to look like this. You're in a group chat with 15 people, you feel lonely. Now, what's interesting to me is that the boys are trending at a trend line steeper than girls. Because remember, girls are communal and boys seek agency, which is why video games become so appealing to boys, because you are the captain of that ship. And it's a surrogate for real life. And it's designed like that way. When we talk about addicting people the way Facebook works and Instagram and TikTok and those things work, video games are designed to be addicting for boys because it simulates a career. You can advance, you can earn coins, tokens, whatever, and so you can get promotions and raises in the video game, and so it becomes a surrogacy for real life. Like, you have to consider who's influencing your children. And we used to be able to say, well, if you want to have a play date at so-and-so's house, then I need to talk to her mom so I can learn what they're all about before I see them. That doesn't even matter anymore because you can't check who's the TikTok user's mom is and what she believes. There is emotional intimacy. There is all kinds of intimacy that's all going by the wayside because when you go into a restaurant and you see the family, they're all on their phones. Check this out. In 2006, when Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, 4.4%, or 1 in every 23 US adults, had diagnosed ADHD. By 2023, 10.2%, 1 in every 10. That's a 135% increase in diagnosed ADHD in adults since smartphones have arrived. Because I believe that behavior is caught, not taught. The reason I know that is because I have a son of driving age, and well, let me tell you about the progression. My grandfather, in the 1960s, his job, he was a test driver for Ford. As a result of that, my father became a racing car driver. As a result of that, my two brothers and I raced motorcycles and bicycles. So that's all fun and interesting, right? My son, 22, drives too close and too fast. He drives like he's drafting on the track. But you want to know why he drives like he's drafting on the track? Because my grandfather was a test driver for Ford in the 1960s, who taught his son how to drive too fast, who taught his sons how to drive too fast, who taught his son how to drive too fast.